Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Mark Donovan had always trusted his wife, Claire. They'd been married for 8 years, built a modest but comfortable life in Dallas, and lived in a 2-story home with a porch swing Claire loved to decorate with seasonal flowers. Mark was a financial advisor, steady, reliable, and known for being the kind of man who never let his clients down. Claire worked in marketing, where her charm and sharp wit drew people to her like moths to a flame. But over the last few months, Mark noticed something unsettling. Claire's phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now always glued to her hand. She'd laugh at messages, her smile lingering in ways Mark hadn't seen in years. At dinner, while Mark talked about his day, she'd tilt her screen just enough to hide the words lighting it up. One night, while they were in the living room, he finally asked, "Who's been keeping you so entertained lately?" His tone was calm, but the question carried weight. Claire looked up, eyes wide for a moment, then softened into a laugh. "Oh, relax, Mark. It's just Tyler. You know, my work husband. We joke around, that's all. Harmless flirting. Work husband." The phrase stuck in Mark's chest like a blade. He tried to smile, tried to let it pass, but her casual dismissal gnawed at him. He couldn't ignore how quickly she brushed off his concern, as if his feelings didn't matter. That week, their routine carried on like normal. Or at least, Claire acted as if nothing had changed. She left early, came home late, claiming late-night strategy sessions or afterward brainstorming at the office. But Mark, meticulous by nature, noticed her perfume clinging to her clothes a little too strongly, her makeup smudged like she had freshened up before walking in the door. One Friday evening, she claimed she'd be home by 10 after a campaign launch dinner. Mark's got twisted. He waited until she drove off, then grabbed his jacket and followed her at a distance, his headlights far enough back that she wouldn't notice. Claire's car pulled into the office parking lot, but she didn't head inside. Instead, she parked beneath a lone streetlight. Moments later, another car pulled up beside hers, Tyler's. Mark had seen him once at a company party, tall, smug, with a grin that never quite reached his eyes. From the shadows, Mark watched Claire step out of her car, her laughter floating through the cool night air. Tyler leaned against his vehicle as she walked right into his arms. Their lips met under the streetlight, the kind of kiss that left no room for misunderstanding. It wasn't harmless. It wasn't a joke. It was betrayal. Mark's hands clenched around the steering wheel. His heart pounded, torn between storming out and exposing them or retreating and planning something far more calculated. Rage surged through him, but so did clarity. This wasn't the moment to confront her. Not yet. He drove home in silence, every second of their kiss replaying in his mind like a cruel movie. By the time Claire returned later that night, all smiles and excuses about a long meeting, Mark was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to look over paperwork. She kissed his cheek lightly, her lipstick faintly smudged. He said nothing, but the next morning, before she woke, he slid a folded note on her nightstand. It wasn't a love note. Not anymore. Just a few simple words written in his steady hand. "I know what you did." The note sat there like a silent bomb on the nightstand. Claire blinked at it the next morning, groggy from sleep, her hair tangled across her pillow. She picked it up with a puzzled frown, expecting maybe a sweet line from Mark, something playful. But when her eyes scanned the words, "I know what you did," the color drained from her face. Her hands trembled as she tucked the note back under the clock, as if hiding it would erase what it meant. She glanced toward the doorway, where the smell of fresh coffee wafted from the kitchen. Mark's footsteps echoed faintly across the hardwood floor. He was moving around like it was just another Saturday, humming a low tune as if nothing had happened. "Morning," Mark called out casually when she entered, wearing her robe a little too tightly. He handed her a mug without meeting her eyes. Claire forced a smile. "Morning." She tried to act normal, chatting about errands, a new restaurant downtown, the neighbor's barking dog, but Mark just nodded, sipping his coffee. His calmness rattled her more than if he had exploded in anger. Every pause, every silence felt like a loaded gun pointed in her direction. Inside, Mark's mind was spinning. He had always been the kind of man who calculated moves before making them, whether balancing a portfolio or managing their household finances. Now, that instinct served him in a different way. Bursting out at Claire would give her an easy out, a chance to deny or twist the truth. No, he wanted her to sweat, to unravel under the weight of her own lies. That afternoon, Claire retreated to the bedroom, pretending to fold laundry while really staring at her phone. Her messages to Tyler were frantic. He knows. I don't know how, but he knows. Stay calm. He's bluffing. Tyler replied quickly. No, you don't understand him. Mark doesn't bluff. Her heart pounded as she shoved the phone under a pillow when Mark walked in to grab a shirt. He didn't say a word, just gave her a steady, unreadable look before walking out again. That silence suffocated her. Over the next few days, their routine turned into a psychological battlefield. At breakfast, Mark would pour her orange juice, smiling faintly as if nothing was wrong, while Claire's hands shook as she buttered her toast. At night, she'd slide into bed beside him, stiff and unsure, while Mark pretended to sleep, his mind rehearsing the next step of his plan. One evening, as she scrolled through her phone on the couch, Mark finally spoke. So, he said casually, eyes fixed on the TV, how's Tyler these days? Still making you laugh at the office? Claire froze. The blood drained from her face, but she forced out a nervous laugh. Mark, I told you, it's just office banter. You're blowing it out of proportion. Mark turned his head slowly, his gaze sharp as glass. Am I? For a moment, the room went still. Claire swallowed hard, her throat dry. But before she could respond, Mark stood up and left the room, leaving behind an echo of dread. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the parking lot kiss in her mind, wondering if Mark had seen it, if he had proof. Every creak of the house made her flinch. Every sigh from Mark's side of the bed made her wonder when the explosion would come. Mark, meanwhile, lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought back to their life together, the dinners he cooked when she worked late, the vacations he saved up for, the promises they once whispered in the dark. All of it, shattered by a lie wrapped in the excuse of harmless flirting. His chest tightened with both pain and resolve. She had betrayed him in the most humiliating way, and yet still expected him to stay blind. No, she had taken something from him. Trust, dignity, peace of mind. He was going to take something back. The next day, Mark made his first quiet move. He gathered their financial documents, photocopied Claire's work schedule, and even pulled the car's GPS history. Every fact, every detail was ammunition. He wasn't going to throw his life into chaos with blind anger. He was going to build a strategy. Claire, sensing the shift, tried to overcompensate. She cooked his favorite meals, wore the perfume he used to compliment, even suggested a weekend getaway. But each effort only deepened his certainty. She wasn't being genuine. She was scrambling to cover her tracks. That weekend, Mark called up an old friend from college, Derek, now a lawyer in Houston. Over a quiet beer, he explained what he'd seen, what he suspected, and what he wanted. Derek listened carefully, his jaw tightening with every word. You're playing this smart, Derek said finally. If you want to confront her, you'll have leverage. But if you want real revenge, you need to make sure she doesn't see it coming. Mark nodded slowly. That was exactly his plan. By Sunday night, Claire couldn't take it anymore. She cornered him in the kitchen, her voice trembling. Mark, what's going on with you? You've been acting so cold. If something's bothering you, just say it. He looked at her, his expression calm, but his eyes burning with quiet fury. Funny, he said softly. I was just about to ask you the same thing. Claire's breath caught. She tried to speak, but no words came out. Mark placed his empty glass in the sink, wiped his hands on a towel, and walked past her without another word. It was then Claire realized. Her husband wasn't just suspicious. He was waiting, watching, planning, and whatever was coming next, she wasn't ready for it. By Monday morning, Claire's nerves were so frayed she could hardly hold her coffee cup without spilling it. Mark had left early, saying he had a client breakfast, but in reality, he was 2 blocks away in his car, watching her leave for work. He wasn't stalking her blindly. This was surveillance. Every movement she made, every stop she took, he wanted recorded in his memory. If she thought she could outmaneuver him, she was wrong. When she pulled in her office lot, Mark waited until she went inside. Then he called a private investigator, someone Derek had recommended. The man's name was Cole Matthews, ex-cop, mid-40s, known for being both discreet and thorough. Mark didn't trust chance. He wanted undeniable proof of Claire's betrayal, the kind that would silence her lies before she even tried to tell them. Cole met him later that afternoon at a coffee shop. "You want pictures, texts, the whole package?" Cole asked, jotting down notes. Mark nodded. "Everything. I don't just want to know. I want to end this on my terms." While Cole began his work, Mark kept up the facade at home. He was still the steady husband, mowing the lawn, paying the bills, cooking dinner on Wednesday night. But the air around them was thick with tension. Claire's attempts at conversation died in the silence. Her laughter sounded forced, and her once bold personality seemed to shrink under the weight of Mark's unreadable calm. Meanwhile, her messages to Tyler grew frantic. "He's distant. I think he knows." Tyler's replies came quick, but careless. "Stop worrying. He's probably just stressed. He won't do anything." But Tyler didn't know Mark. On Thursday, Mark received an email from Cole with a file attached. He hesitated only a moment before opening it. His stomach twisted as image after image appeared. Claire and Tyler leaving the office together, her hand brushing his arm in a way no married woman should, their heads leaning close at a bar, their smiles too intimate to mistake for friendship. And then, there was another kiss, this time in the parking garage. Mark's jaw tightened. He had seen enough. That evening, Claire came home humming softly, trying to appear normal. Mark was at the dining table, his laptop open, papers neatly stacked beside him. He looked up, his face calm. "Busy day?" he asked. "Exhausting," Claire replied, forcing a smile. She walked over, kissed his cheek, and went to set her purse down. "Claire," Mark called, his tone low but deliberate. She froze. "You ever think about honesty? How one lie can undo years of trust?" Her pulse quickened. "Mark, what are you talking about?" He didn't answer. Instead, he closed the laptop and stood, his height towering over her fragile attempt at composure. Then he walked past her and out to the porch, leaving her staring at the silent machine, her skin prickling with unease. That night, Claire lay awake long after Mark had fallen asleep, or pretended to. Her mind spiraled. Had he seen something? Did he know about Tyler? She replayed every slip-up, every excuse she'd made. By dawn, her head throbbed with fear. The following week, Mark's revenge began to take shape. He met with Derek again, this time with the evidence Cole had gathered. Derek flipped through the photos, shaking his head. "She won't be able to spin her way out of this," Derek said. "You've got everything." "That's the point," Mark replied coldly. "When I confront her, I want her to know she's already lost." But revenge wasn't just about divorce papers or public humiliation. It was about timing. Mark wanted Claire to feel the walls closing in, to taste the dread she had served him night after night. So he played the role of husband a little longer. He planned a dinner outing that Friday, surprising her with reservations at one of their old favorite restaurants. Claire, desperate to cling to any thread of normalcy, dressed up and laughed nervously in the mirror. At dinner, Mark was charming, too charming. He asked about her projects, complimented her dress, even held her hand across the table. For a moment, Claire thought maybe the note had been a bluff. Maybe she could patch things up. But beneath his smile, Mark's mind was steel. Every word was part of the act. On the drive home, Claire leaned her head against the window, her chest loosening for the first time in weeks. Maybe things weren't falling apart after all. But when they pulled into the driveway, Mark parked the car and turned off the engine. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Claire," he said, "you should know something. I don't make threats, and I don't write notes unless I mean them." Her head snapped toward him, her breath catching. "Mark." He held up a hand, silencing her. "Not now. Soon." Then he got out of the car, leaving her trembling in the passenger seat. That night, while Claire showered, Mark sat at his desk, drafting the second note. This one wasn't vague. It was sharp, direct, impossible to misinterpret. He folded it neatly and slipped it into her purse, where he knew she'd find it the next morning at work. The note read, "Every secret has a price. Yours is about to come due." When Claire opened it in the office restroom the next day, her knees nearly buckled. Her reflection in the mirror looked pale, her lipstick uneven, her eyes wide with panic. She fumbled for her phone, texting Tyler. "He knows. I'm telling you, he knows." "I can't breathe." But this time, Tyler's reply took longer. And when it came, it was nothing but a careless shrug and words. "Then maybe it's time to end things." I don't need the drama. The screen blurred as tears filled her eyes. She clutched the note tighter, realizing that not only was her husband circling her like a hawk, but the man she had risked everything for was already slipping away. Mark had set the trap, and now he was ready to close it. Saturday morning arrived, crisp and quiet, but the silence in the Donovan household was heavy. Claire had barely spoken since finding the second note. She shuffled through the kitchen in her robe, eyes sunken from lack of sleep. Mark, on the other hand, looked steady, coffee in hand, calm as if nothing were out of place. "Morning," he said, his tone neutral. Claire opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, she busied herself with the toaster, her hands trembling as she fumbled with the bread. Every second of his composure was torture. She wanted him to yell, to accuse, to give her something she could fight against. Instead, he gave her nothing but silence and patience. That silence screamed louder than any argument ever could. By mid-afternoon, Mark told her he had arranged a small dinner gathering. "Just a few friends," he said casually. "It's been a while since we hosted." Claire blinked, startled. "Tonight? But it'll be good for us," he cut in, his voice smooth. "I've already invited people. Don't worry, you'll manage." And that was the end of the discussion. Claire spent the afternoon in a haze, preparing appetizers, setting the table, trying to hold herself together. Mark moved around her with practiced ease, offering help but keeping his tone light, unreadable. It wasn't until the doorbell rang that Claire realized who friends meant. Standing there, smiling politely, were two of Mark's colleagues, Derek the lawyer, and, her breath caught, Tyler Grant. Her stomach dropped. She shot a wide-eyed look at Mark, but his expression was calm, even pleasant. Come in," he said, ushering them inside. The evening began like any other. Drinks were poured, small talk was exchanged, laughter bubbled from Derek as he shared a story. But beneath the surface, tension thrummed like a live wire. Claire's hand shook as she set down the wine glasses, avoiding Tyler's eyes. Tyler, for once, wasn't smirking. His face was stiff, pale. Halfway through dinner, Mark cleared his throat. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about honesty lately." He looked at Claire, then at Tyler, his voice measured. "It's the foundation of trust, isn't it?" Claire's fork clattered onto her plate. "Mark." He raised a hand, silencing her. Then he reached into the side table drawer and pulled out a neat folder. "I thought tonight would be a good time to share something." One by one, he slid photographs across the table. Claire and Tyler, standing too close outside the office. Claire's hand on Tyler's arm at the bar. The kiss in a parking lot. Derek leaned back, arms folded. Tyler stiffened, his jaw clenching. Claire's face drained of color. Mark's voice stayed calm. "For weeks, I've listened to excuses about late nights, about harmless flirting. But lies don't stay buried forever. They always leave evidence." The room was dead silent, except for Claire's sharp inhale. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "Mark, please. I can explain." "Explain." His laugh was soft, bitter. "Explain how you turned me into a fool while you kissed him in parking lots. Explain how you risked everything we built for cheap thrills." Her lips trembled. Tyler shifted uncomfortably, muttering, "This was a mistake." Mark leaned forward, his gaze cold but controlled. "You're right, Tyler. It was. And tonight, that mistake ends." He pushed another paper across the table. Divorce documents, already prepared, signed on his side. Claire stared at them in horror, her hands trembling. "You'll notice," Mark continued, "that I've secured the house, the accounts, everything tied legally to my name. You walked away from our marriage the moment you chose him. So I'm making sure I walk away with dignity." Claire's tears spilled over, her voice breaking. "Mark, don't do this. I was stupid, But he stood, his chair scraping back. "Save it. You called it harmless. Remember that when you're explaining to people why you lost your husband, your home, and your reputation." He turned to Derek and Tyler. "Dinner's over." Tyler avoided Claire's eyes as he muttered a quick excuse and left. Derek gave Mark a firm nod before following. Claire collapsed into the chair, sobbing, clutching the papers. Mark paused at the doorway, looking back one last time. His voice was quiet, steady, but it cut deeper than a shout ever could. "You wanted harmless. You got devastating." Then he walked out, leaving Claire alone with the wreckage of her choices.